Hello, welcome back to workshop 4 of the Art of Communication series. I am Grace McBride. You know that already, and you also know that I've developed these in collaboration with Community Connect South Shoalhaven. This is our last workshop together in our 4-part series, and hopefully this workshop will help you piece all of these different theories and concepts that we've been working on together. So I'm going to share my screen and we will jump right in. Okay, so today's workshop is called Amplify and Scale. And what I will walk you through today is how to improve your communication and then measure it to learn its effectiveness, and then to amplify it even further. So you've got a worksheet as usual, that you can be working through. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take you through a whole section and I'm going to hand over to you to work through your workbook, and then we'll do the last 2 sections together. Okay, so let's jump in. 3 goals today. We're going to learn how to create stickier content, which I'll talk about in a minute. We're going to learn how to help other organizations and community groups tell your story and communicate for you. And number 3, we're going to learn how to tell what's working and what isn't when it comes to your communication efforts. So, a couple of quick recaps first. I'm sure you guys can say this with me for now. What happens if you confuse? You lose. You need really clear, simple communication and a simple and clear brand story if you want your communication to cut through. If you speak to everyone, you speak to no one. Understanding your audience is absolutely the most critical step in every single piece of communication you create. I always come back to the audience because it's the number one thing you need to be considering when you are doing any type of communication, from a public speech to a flyer that you're producing to a social media post to a conversation you're having over the phone. Thinking about who you are speaking to and what is going to engage them is the number one most important thing. Okay, and number 3, content pillars can help you create great content consistently. So those content pillars we talked about in workshop 3, they are a combination of your brand values, your audience needs or themes, and your content goals, the outcomes and actions you want to be driving all the time. When you combine those three things effectively and well and strategically, you are left with content pillars, which you use to help craft all of the communication you need to be delivering all the time to promote your organization. So, content pillars can be difficult to produce, but they are so worth the time trying to figure them out. So, what happens now? What do we do? You've got a brand story, you know your audiences, you've tailored your brand story for your audiences, you're learning how to create content pillars so that all of your other communication and promotion efforts can be effective and consistent and strategic. What now? Well, we learn how to make your content better. And by content, remember, I mean your communication. We're going to learn how to help others communicate for you so it doesn't always have to be just on you, and you learn what's working and what's not. So, first things first, making your content better. I like to say we need to make sticky content. Now, when I say sticky content, I mean the types of content that sticks in your brain, that is engaging, that helps you to, or helps your ideal or what am I trying to say? Your desired or target audience take action. It's sticky, it sticks with them. So there's lots of different ways that you can make your content better or stickier, but the first place to start is to improve your writing and your speaking, but mostly your writing, because for most of us, um, our writing, in our flyers, in our social media posts, in our emails, that is the way that we are communicating the most. So we want to make sure that our writing is really strong. Now, there is a term for writing that is for a business or an organization, and it's called copywriting. So when I say copy, I mean the writing that you put in it's your promotional writing, okay? So that's what I mean by copy. And I have 6 tips for writing better copy. And I've got them all, and they are all can be found in your worksheet as well. So I've got one all the way through to step 6 with an exercise for you to practice. But like I said, I really want to take you through the tips first, and then I'm going to hand over to you to have a go practicing in your worksheet. Okay, so copywriting tip number 1, write like you talk, or better yet, write the way your audience talks. Okay. An example, I would never say, here are some tools you can utilize right now. I would say, here are some tools you can use right now, right? So thinking about what words do you actually say versus ones you write down. Okay. And secondly, here's another example which might make what I said just a little bit clearer because I think I just muddled up my words then. Here's another example. We help verbally profuse individuals abbreviate their text-based professional missives versus we help wordy types tighten up their copy. Okay, do you see the difference? I'm not going to say words like utilize or verbally profuse, even though I might have a tendency to write that down, that's not the way I talk. It's not the way I speak. And so we want to be changing our words, our written words, to be more like the way that we talk, the way that we speak. It's more human. So, some tips for doing that. Once you've written, say, a social media post or an email, I want you to read your final copy, those final words out loud. If any words trip you up, then you know that they're not natural to you. Okay. Second way to do it is to read your copy to a friend. Um, Often I'll find that people will, read their copy to another person in their organization, which is good, but I'd really encourage you to every now and then read your flyer copy or your email copy to a friend that's got nothing to do with your organization or community group, because you want to make sure that you're not using any internal or assumed language that someone in your organization knows, but a member of the public has no idea what you're talking about. So if you read your copy, your email copy, your flyer copy out to a friend and they're like, what? What does that mean? Or that doesn't sound like you, then you know that you need to make it clearer and you can get rid of some of those words. Okay. So on that point, once you've read it out loud to yourself and read it to a friend, go through and get rid of all of the unnatural words, the words that you wouldn't speak, the ones you wouldn't say out loud, and then replace them with ones you would actually say. So again, taking utilize and changing it for use. Okay, tip number 2, get rid of filler words. Here's the example. I firmly believe that everyone is fully capable of writing their own copy and developing their own truly unique voice, as long as they have the necessary knowledge of how to implement certain techniques which I'm about to share. Versus, everyone can write, everyone can develop a voice. All it takes are these simple techniques. There are so many filler words that we can cut from our writing to make it clearer and more effective. Now, a small point here. A lot of us were taught in corporate settings that to be more professional, we should use more words. And to tip one's point, we should use really professional words, really big words. When we are trying to connect with people, big words and too many words gets confusing. And what do we know about confusion? If you confuse, you lose. So get rid of filler words and use words that people say and understand and get. Number 3, probably the most powerful thing that you could change right now in your copy that would make a massive difference. Use the word you. Better yet, use somebody's name if you have the opportunity to in an email and a phone conversation. Use their name, but also use the word you or you are or you have or you've or your. Get something in there. Our brain is wired to pick up on the things that we need to pay attention to. So the example, which one is stronger? Each customer will be required to review our new guidelines. Could be about anyone, could be someone else, versus as a customer, you are required to review our new guidelines. Oh, my brain's like, yep, I need to do something. What, me? Me? Okay, I'll do that. Okay, so add you or their name wherever you can. Number four, this is one of the most powerful ones to practice because it is difficult to practice, but it is really powerful and it really links back to your audience persona development and everything you know about your audience. It's called the birthday wish test, and the goal is to, when you're writing your copy, to imagine how your ideal audience or how your target audience would think about the thing they want in relation to you and your organization as they're blowing out the candles on their birthday cake. Okay, so does someone say, I really wish I could get financially empowered? Or when they're blowing out the candles on their cake, do they say, I wish I could just snap my fingers and have all my bills paid plus $1 million in the bank too? What do people actually want and what are the words they use to say that, to communicate that? I'm going to give you two more examples of this because it's really powerful when done well. Okay, so this was for an online course, and the online course, the teacher was offering weekly accountability calls. But when someone is blowing out the candles on their cake, are they thinking, gosh, I wish I could just get weekly accountability calls for that program? Or are they thinking something more like, I wish I could stick to a writing schedule, finish this damn thing, and have my book in Barnes& and Noble by my next birthday? Right? What do they actually want? What are the outcomes they're actually thinking about? Example number three, I wish I could unlock my authenticity. What does that even mean? No one's wishing for that. Instead, they might be wishing for, I wish I could be more like myself and not care what anyone thinks. That's what people are wishing for, right? So, when you are writing about the ways that your work impacts someone, try and be careful for things like programs or workshops that empower you and change it to, something like programs and workshops that help you feel better about yourself. Think about what people actually want, what they're actually wishing for, and use that language instead. Tip number five, use stories. And you guys already know this. Everything we've been talking about so far is storytelling, right? Good specific stories spark engagement from your reader. So I want you to think about how can you include more stories and how can you really capture specific details of stories that your target audience will connect to. And here's an example. I was weighed down by massive crushing debt versus the room spun as I finally clocked the number, my eyes racing past the big bold letters past due. 52,487 and 43 cents. Credit card debt. Every swipe of plastic had finally caught up with me. I turned to the sink and retched. What on earth was I going to do? One of those stories is clearly more capturing and evocative than the other. And there won't always be the opportunity to include stories in your communication, but wherever possible, I want you to think about what is the detail, what are the little moments that I could enrich my communication with stories that they'll understand or connect to, or examples that they'll connect to that just makes them feel more connected to my organization as a result. You will always want people to think, gosh, they really get me. And so therefore, this is where I need to spend my time. Okay, number six, you already know this. We've talked about it in every single workshop so far. Include a call to action. So if you really want your content to stick and you want people to do something after reading or engaging with your words, you need to give them an action to take. So rather than saying, I wrote this book, I'm really proud of it, say, I wrote this book and I'm really proud of it, but also say, click this link to pre-order it on Amazon now. Now, it works, like I've said here, because it leaves absolutely no ambiguity in your audience's mind about what action they should take. But I want to give you a follow-up question here, which is how can you make that call to action incredibly easy? And we've talked about this in other workshops, yeah? Like how do we, when you think about that audience, how do you make taking action so much easier for them or safer for them or more exciting for them, thinking about their specific needs as an audience group How do you make taking action even easier for them? Okay. So, I have given you a really simple exercise for each of those 6 tips. They're here in your worksheet. It's a sentence for each tip that you can go through and practice each of these. So I want you to hit pause on this video in a second and go through and just have a go at answering all of these exercises. Now I'm just going to pause on the birthday wish test one though. This one can be tricky because I've asked this question in a different way, and I've asked it for a specific reason. But I've got this sentence here, this 2 sentence paragraph that I want you to rewrite as though you were writing to a friend. So I want you to make it really warm and personal, as if you're writing to somebody you know, right? But I want you to, in that process, the reason I've asked you to write it to a friend is it can just make it a little bit easier to apply the birthday wish test. So I want you to think about what I'm asking here, which is I'm asking for them to make a donation. And I want you to think about, what does this person, this friend of mine who I'm talking to, what do they actually want? And what are they actually wishing for? And what are the words they would use to describe that? And how do I tell that story to make them engage? So just use the birthday wish as a way of reframing your way of thinking about answering this question. So just have a go and see how you go. Um, I'm saying have a go a lot, sorry, but have a go, see how it works for you, and then come back to it again if you need to. All right, hit pause, go work through these 6 exercises, and I'll see you when you're back. Okay, am I back? Awesome. All right. Um, a really great step that you can do next that I haven't put in here because I'm trying to keep it simplified for you, but I would love you to go back to your brand story now and take these 6 tips and see if you can apply each of the 6 tips to your brand stories and improve them. Okay. And if you don't have a brand story yet, grab a recent piece of communication, an email or a social media post or a speech that you've given recently, some piece of communication, and apply those 6 tips and see if you can improve what you've done. Okay. So that's the next way to level up from this, is keeping that in practice and then going forward, just constantly practicing these simple tips. Okay. So we've improved what we're doing. We're starting to make our content and our communication stickier. What's next? We're going to help others share your content. So if you jump into your worksheet, I've got this here for you. What I mean by helping others share your content is that there will be other community groups, um, other businesses, other Facebook groups, other all types of people and organizations and brands and businesses that can help promote your organization too, right? So if you have an upcoming workshop and you want to really encourage RSVPs and attendance from the general public, I want you to think about some organizations or brands or businesses that could help promote it. And I want you to practice asking other people to help share your content to get your message out there. And most of you are already doing this, right? This is something that Community Connect helps with. This is something that the Community Expo helps with. But I want you to think about who else has maybe an alignment with my target audience, or who has an audience that would be really great to come along to an event. And I'll give the example of, say, let's just say the Community Expo. If you wanted to get some more, more parents in, could you go to the P&C committees at local schools and get them involved? Could you go to the different sporting clubs for kids and tell them about it? So, thinking about what are those other organizations or groups that I could access and see if they could help spread the news about what I'm doing. But here's the big but. You have to make it easy for them to share your message because guess what? They are just like you. They are so busy trying to promote their own things that trying to promote someone else's can be a pain in the butt. Okay? Let's just call it what it is. It can be annoying and it can be difficult because often you're dealing with people who are volunteers too and just don't have the time to be doing it. So you need to make it really easy for them. How do you do that? These 5 ways. Firstly, you think about how your message could connect with their audience. So, yes, I don't expect you to be a pro at understanding their audiences, but let's use the Community Expo example again. Let's say that you want to um, talk to the local footy club because you want to encourage teens and kids to come along and their parents will think, okay, well, gosh, what about this event is interesting or useful for that group? What about them would interest that audience? Is it if I'm trying to connect with the parents who send their kids through that sporting club, what might they be worried about? Maybe they want their kids to feel more connected to the community. So I might try and build on that angle. Or maybe they want to know ways that they could give back outside of the sporting club. So, or maybe the sporting club wants to know how they can get more volunteers. So maybe that's another way in. So just thinking about what is your message and how does it connect with that organization and their various audiences. Number 2, be clear. I've said, could a 5-year-old understand what your message is? 5-year-olds are really smart, but they need clarity. So, is your message really clear to people? Are you using internal language that members of the public just won't know what you're talking about? Have you been really clear about what your message is and how it affects them? Uh, Calls to action. We've talked about this so much. What is the best call to action for their audience? So, is a direct or a transitional call to action best? Yeah, remembering the difference. A direct call to action is sign up for my workshop versus a transitional call to action might be download the program to see what we've got in store for the workshop. Yeah. That was off the top of my head, so a bit messy, but you get the gist. That's a transitional call to action. They're not committing to anything, but they're engaging with you a little bit more to learn some more information. You're getting them on the hook versus hooked, reeled in, scaled, and served with some chips. I'm giving lots of analogies today. Um, so think about what call to action would be best for their audience. Make it easy for them to share. So, what ways do they have to promote it that you know about? Have they got a newsletter? Um, have they got a staff room or a volunteer room where you could put up a flyer or a poster? Um, have they got their own volunteer day coming up next week where you could just create a little flyer that they could hand out? So if you think about them being really busy too, and not wanting to ask them to go and create things for you, what can you give to them to make it easier? If you know they've got a newsletter, could you write the paragraph up for them, and include any links or information or images that they might need to make that really easy for them to do? Um, Really importantly, make sure you include the dates, the links, the testimonials or stories that they might want, and here, yeah, other content they could use. Is there a video or a really great testimonial that you think they'd like that you can package up for them and make it super easy for them to share? Okay, so over in your worksheet, I've left a little bit of space where I'd love you just to brainstorm some of the groups or organizations that you could collaborate with and how you could start to make sharing that content with them really easy for them. Okay, hit pause and come back to me. Okay, am I back? Let's get into our final piece of the puzzle, measuring success. Okay, so you are communicating, which is brilliant. But how do you know what's working and what isn't? Very often, I like to say it can feel like throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing what sticks, right? But there are ways to track what is working and what isn't working in your communication. Now, really often what I see with community groups in particular or smaller businesses is that the only source of tracking that they have is the tangible things like the number of people who came to a workshop, the number of people who um, signed up to volunteer last year, right? You've got those, what I would consider conversions. That's a sales term that when somebody buys something from you, that's a conversion. They have converted, they are now a customer. They've gone from an interested person you are marketing to a customer, right? So in your case, a conversion might be someone has signed up to volunteer. It might be someone in the community that you help has signed on to do a workshop with you or has used your service in some way. A donation conversion might be, transferring the money and giving you a donation, right? Those are the conversions that are easier for you to track. But what else is out there all the time is all the efforts, all the communication efforts that are going out to collect those conversions, right? And what you want to start tracking is all of those efforts to see, okay, well, for that event, we we did a newsletter that went out to 300 people, and we did 4 posts on Facebook that, I can see would potentially have the reach of maybe 500 people. And we put up some flyers that it's hard to tell, but let's say they were maybe seen by 1,000 people. So what's that, 1,000? 300 here, let's call it 2,000 people that might have seen that we were promoting this. And we had 200 people come to the event. So we had a 20% conversion rate. Okay, so you're starting to see, okay, that's a 20% conversion rate from all the efforts. But if you start to track the effectiveness of your flyer versus your newsletter versus your one-on-one conversations, you might go, gee, I had 10 one-on-one conversations and 6 of those people converted and registered for the event. That's a 60% conversion rate from the one-on-one conversations versus the 5 people who signed up from the newsletter link. Okay. So you might go, okay, well, it's the in-person conversations that are really important. How can we put more energy there? Or it might be that you find out your flyer is really effective. So how do you do that? How do you start to track these metrics? Because a lot of it feels really wishy-washy, right? Like, how do you know who's converting from a flyer? So we have to start building ways for you to track this. Now, there are some platforms and some communication methods that will track this for you. So, if you put Google Analytics on your website, you can start to track how many people are coming to your website and from where. If you have social media accounts, so a Facebook account or an Instagram account, there are insights built into those where you can see your audience. And even the really, if you don't even click into your analytics, you can see it for yourself. Well, this post on this day got 5 comments, and this post the next day got none. So what was it about this post that really got people engaging? Okay. Um, if you send out an email and one email got 6 replies, but another email got 10, what was it about that email that got 10 versus 6? And if you start tracking the different communication posts and emails and conversations you're having, and you start tracking what happens as a result of them, even if it's just in a notebook or a simple spreadsheet or a Google Doc or a Word document, whatever, if you start tracking that, you'll start to get a better sense of what is working and what isn't. And a really simple way of doing that is simply asking people. So if your flyer says, call this number to find out, ask them, hey, how did you hear about us? Oh, a flyer at the doctor's surgery. Awesome. Make a little note. If you are, giving talks at other different community groups around town or at different places, at different businesses, at different places, and you notice that at one event you might have 10 people come up to you at the end and say, gee, that was great. Thank you so much. How can I find out more? And maybe the talk you give the next month, you only get two people. Have a think about it. Was there anything that changed in that that I can lean on or I could start to pull some data from? Okay, and then there are some more techie things you can do here. So I know that a lot of you that I've worked with so far or that are in community groups will rely on QR codes on flyers and posters. Well, there are some ways that you can create different links for those QR codes so that you can track. Well, excuse me, the QR code that we used on the poster, 50 people clicked on or used that QR code versus the four that we got from the flyers at the doctor's surgery. So the poster is a much better investment for us and a much better converter. So maybe next time we'll do more posters and less flyers. Um, Simple things that you can just start to build to see what is working and what isn't. Um, so for now, I just want you to jump into your worksheet. I'll click back through. I've got a list of ways that you could see to find out what's working and what's not. Everything from having conversations with people, like I said, how did you find out about us? What made you sign up? Just asking people the question, to sending out surveys, um, harvesting at an so if you're at an event, and you can just ask people as you're leaving, can you please write a testimonial as you're going and tell us how you found out about us? Or can you please just jot down, was it Facebook that you saw the most that made you come along today? So how can you harvest in real life? Like I said earlier, email replies. See which emails people are responding to, or which get opened the most, and see if you can start to track that. RSVPs to your free workshops and programs. Who's coming along to the most? Which ones are the most effective? And what did you do to communicate or promote one event over another? And then you've got the insights and data you can get from your online tools. Like I said, your Google Analytics and your social media platforms, the insights they give you there. So have a bit of a think, have a bit of a brainstorm of some ways that you could start tracking success, so you can start to learn more about it. You can hit pause. I won't hit it for you. I can't. You hit pause and then come back to me. Okay. I hope that I'm back and you're back. We will be. So with this process, something that I talked about when we were together in the workshop is thinking about this process as a holy bucket, a leaky bucket. So if all of your conversions are a cup of water, one person signed onto the program, one cup of water goes into the bucket, awesome. And then another one, and then another one, beautiful. Well, what happens if the bucket is full of holes and we start losing water? We lose these conversions before we can lose them. So your data that you get from measuring, you might go, oh, gee, um, I've looked and I can see that the Facebook posts that didn't have a phone number on them for someone, so someone could call us. We didn't get many replies from those, or we didn't get many comments on that, or any activity out of that. So, whoops, that's something we can fix. Beautiful. That's a bit of sticky tape on one hole in the bucket. And then another hole might be, oh gosh, we didn't actually put a QR code or anything on that flyer, so I can't actually track that. So let's start tracking that. Or maybe on the flyer, I didn't say actually when the event was going to be and what they'd get out of it, but on the flyer I did, and I got more on the flyer than the poster. So fix that on the poster, sticky tape on the hole on the bucket. And by tracking and measuring what's working and what's not, and starting to look at, okay, why was that email more effective than this email? Why was that poster more effective than this flyer? You're starting to identify where those holes in the bucket are, and you can start to fix them. And sooner rather than later, you'll start to see that your bucket is less leaky and you are losing less conversions and you are getting more wins in the bucket. So It's just a visual to think about as you're doing this. That's us for now. That is the end of our series. So to recap together, if you want to be more effective in communicating the work of your organization and getting more people to engage with you and connect with you, there are lots of things we can do, but the simplest and most effective places to put your energy is number one, in being clear and concise with your message and having a really clear brand story that cuts through and connects. By number two, really deeply understanding the different audiences that you are talking to and spending time gathering data and getting to know your audience so that you can start to tailor your communication, tailor your brand stories to make them as effective and engaging for those audiences as possible. Number three, that it is absolutely worth taking the time now to consider what your content pillars might need to be in order to be strategic and aligned with your brand values, your audience needs and themes, and your content goals, so that you have a guide, these content pillars as a guide to know what to be communicating and how often and when. And number four, once you've got your content pillars and you're creating content underneath them and you've got your brand story and your audiences, you can start to improve the communication, the content, and the copy that you are pushing out, all the ways you're promoting, by tightening up your copy and making it as effective as possible, by getting other organizations to help spread your message and making it easy for them, and by starting to measure what's working and what's not, and learning from those lessons and running them back through your communication efforts. So it's a lot to do. I know it can be really overwhelming, but just remember, you don't need to be a pro at this immediately. This stuff takes years to learn, and the more that you practice it, the better you'll get. So just take it step by step. Come back to these videos whenever you need. And if you need help, please, please, please reach out to the Community Connect team and we will get you some help because that's what we're here to do. Good luck, happy communicating, and I will see you in another time.